All right, let's get started then. So, thank you everyone for coming. This week we're doing Ornn items or Ornn artifacts, and it's going to be on patch 13.24b. There are 16 total artifacts, and we'll go into a guide of how to use each one, what units they're best on, and what boards to play. So let's get into it. We'll talk about a quick intro about these artifacts first, and then go into the actual guide, and then have a Q&A at the very end. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute your mic and ask in the VC, or type in the VC chat. I'll keep that open and be happy to answer anything. So let's get into it. Ornn items / artifacts. There's a couple of different ways to get Ornn artifacts in this game. The first one is getting Portable Forge. So here are the stats for Portable Forge plus, Portable Forge plus, and just the regular Portable Forge. Basically, they're just at different stages. So I would recommend mainly to only take Portable Forge on the 2-1 option. So this is just the regular Portable Forge. As you can see, it has the highest placement, or I guess technically the lowest placement out of all the Portable Forges, just because you get the longest use of that item. You get to use it for stage 2 as opposed to just for stage 3 onward or just stage 4 onward. So that's the first option and the recommended option to get yourself an Ornn artifact. The second way is to use the artifact anvil region. So this is at the start of the game. You could democratically vote, and if you like playing it with artifacts, then you could vote for that and maybe it'll land on it. Oh, and the last way is to get a Heartsteel cash out. Artifacts start to appear after 130 hearts, so keep an eye out for that. You may get an artifact and hopefully a Reforger, just in case your artifact does not suit your board. I say mainly Portable Forge on 2-1 because there are cases where the 3-2 and the 4-2 options are acceptable. That is, if you have a 2-item carry or a 2-item main tank and you are missing a third item, you have no components, and you need something to fill that slot. So that's a quick intro into the artifacts. So here are all of them listed according to their placements or their average placements from the stats. So you can see Zhonya places the highest, or technically the lowest is technically the lowest placement, like closer to 1 on the stats, and Deathfire Grasp has the highest average placement. And we'll talk about why this is the case. And yeah, we'll start in order in the guide. So we'll start off with Zhonya's and then slowly make our way down all the way to Deathfire Grasp. So start off with Zhonya's. What is Zhonya's? Well, this is the description. Basically, at 40% health, you'll go invulnerable and untargetable. So untargetable is a big one. So they will stop attacking you. So this is an aggro drop and an invulnerability for 3 seconds, starting at 40% HP. This is a great item on carries that use AP, so ability power, and use that invulnerability, that aggro drop. So cases like this are like units that are able to like clutch out fights, especially if they're the last one standing, if they have like Archangel or just some sort of stacking mechanic, namely Jax. We'll get into that in a second. Then they're really able to pop off and the enemies can't do anything for 3 seconds. The stats itself gives 45 AP, which is actually really good. That's a good amount, and 30 armor. So it's very good on melee units, melee AP units as well, because they make use of this 30 armor. So best units to use this on. Right now, Jax has the best stats for Zhonya's, and basically you'll be going like Jewel Gauntlet, Zhonya's +1, mostly Hodge, just for the extra healing. And other units that really make use of the Zhonya's is True Damage Akali, not KDA Akali, Kayn, Qiyana, and Jhin. So True Damage Akali, Kayn, and Qiyana are all melee units that either make use of the AP or are just really good with the invulnerability and the untargetability. And then Jhin is, although he is an AD unit that does physical damage, so he doesn't really make that much use of the AP. With his turrets, he is able to like clutch up fights, and he'll be able to attack for those last 3 seconds with like all of his turrets active and hopefully win the fight from you. Acceptable on Ahri and Twisted Fate. Not ideal. If this is your third item, then it's fine. I think TF is a little bit better than Ahri because of Disco and the stacking mechanic, but Ahri is okay too. This is one of the best late game items, and essentially you can almost put it on any like late game carry, especially like 5 cost. So I've only named a couple here, but like York is fine as well. Like Ziggs is fine. So really good late game. Early game, it's still okay. It has decent stats, and right now, if you do have Zhonya's from your 2-1, I would recommend playing Reroll Jax, or just playing Tempo and then putting it on some 5 cost carry on level 8 or level 9. So that's Zhonya's the best stats right now. The second one is Diamond Hands. Also for the schematics, I'll be only showing diagrams for items that have a specific positioning. So if it's just like an Anima Visage, then actually that kind of has positioning as well. But like items that don't really need like too specific of positioning, I'll just have no diagrams for that. But Diamond Hands is one of them. So here we go, 25 AP and 400 health. So you want to be putting this on melee units, namely tanks that use this AP and invulnerability as well. So kind of similar to Zhonya's. However, there's no untargetability. You will still be getting hit with no aggro drop once you've reached the 50% health. So you'll go invulnerable for 1.5 seconds and you'll get 1 gold. So this is extremely good on 2-1. Getting 1 gold every turn will help you hit interest thresholds early and help make you a lot of gold. Some best units to put this on: Echo, Blitzcrank, any 5-cost melees, and True Damage Akali. So kind of similar to Zhonya's. As you may have guessed, like these two items are like the best performing right now because they're similar. They just provide a really good mechanic. Like this invulnerability is extremely good, and the stats that the item give are very good as well. So this is a type of positioning, like let's say you're playing around like the Super Fan, Guardian, Echo, True Damage board, at least like mid game. You want to be having your diamond-handed unit get hit first. So then what happens is all the enemies will be attacking this unit, and then once the invulnerability procs, that means for the full 1.5 seconds they are tanking essentially the entire team. So instead of like spreading out your units and having everybody like split aggro, and then let's say like one unit is hitting Echo, brings them down to 50% HP, and for that 1.5 seconds he's only getting hit by that one unit. This way you're able to maximize your tanking and really like soak up as much damage as possible. So this is Diamond Hands, super good units, or a super good item, and a lot of applicable units, and just very good stats overall. So next one, the third best performing is Gold Collector. So now we're getting a little bit more niche, no longer just good on any units. So Gold Collector, super niche. It's best on attack damage units that do physical damage that utilize crit. Because of the stats the item provides, it's 20 attack damage and 30 crit. So what this means is we want to be pairing this crit with other crit items, so mostly IE or Infinity Edge, and then our last item can be whatever depending on our units. Namely, this is going to be best on Samira and Jhin. However, it can be played with specific like Twitch setups, especially like Twin Terror Twitch, which is kind of a secret tech, but it's slowly starting to be revealed. I'll talk more about this later if you'd like. And then Lucian is okay as well. However, Lucian is just not that good of a carry, but if you don't hit Jhin late game, then Lucian is acceptable. It's also acceptable on Ezreal and Caitlyn as a third item. It's fine. Pair it with Infinity Edge for sure, and then your last item can probably be like red buff for Caitlyn or blue buff for Ezreal. But it's still a very good item. Make sure you're playing attack damage units or physical damage units, and you're pairing this item with crit to really do your damage, and then you'll execute enemies below 12% of their max health, and then you have a 40% chance for that execution to drop 1 gold. So also a really good item on 2-1. Not only is it just providing like good stats, helps you kills units, helps you win streak, having that potential for getting extra gold off of your kills is really good as well. Okay, the next one, that's Defiance. So what does this do? Apart from the stats, so 10 AD, 25 attack speed, and 30 armor, so no magic resist here, just armor, grants the holder 25% Omnivamp, and then over the next 4 seconds, it's kind of an anti-burst mechanic where 50% of the incoming damage is dealt as true damage over 4 seconds. So you basically soak the burst and you take the damage slowly over the next 4 seconds. And it's very good on melee attack damage bruisers, so namely anything to do with like Yone, Riven, Zed, Viego, True Damage Akali, Yorick, Kayn. All of these are very good. Even though Kayn technically does magic damage, this item is still really good on him. Make sure to pair it with other forms of sustain or scaling, so like a Hodge or a Titans. You don't want to be going Bloodthirster ideally with this because it will give you all the Omnivamp you need, and technically more because of the anti-burst. However, something like a Titans works out extremely well, and each tick of the Death's Defiance dot, so damage over time, will apply to the Titans stacking, and you'll be able to like almost insta-stack your Titans if you have this combo paired together. So yeah, really good item. Make sure you're putting it on a melee bruiser and give them 2 other items like a Titans, maybe like Infinity Edge, and you'll be good to go. Okay, Trickster Glass. This is one of the more complicated one. I get a lot of questions asking like, who am I supposed to Trickster's Glass? So let's talk about what it does first. First, it summons a clone. You're able to move this clone around, and whatever unit you clone, it'll have 70% of its max health and 30% extra mana. And then this clone cannot have any items equipped. So because of this, we actually want to be duplicating our backline unit carries. The reason why, I'll just skip to the last point here, like having this like reduction of max health and increase of max mana, this like stacks multiplicatively negatively, which means that, oh, if you have less health and requires more mana, it's very unlikely these frontline units are going to cast. Now, if it's a 2-star version, then probably it'll be fine, especially if it's a unit that benefits from active traits. So like something like a Guardian Duplicator, we'll talk about Thresh later, then it's fine. But ideally, you want to be putting it on your backline carry. So really good early game, and you're able to use this late game as well. Early game, who will be duplicating like your Corki 2, your Jinx 2. This will be super good. It's only the health and the max mana that gets altered. So like the attack damage base stats like this is completely untouched. So you're basically having like an extra 2-star version of whatever you clone. It'll just be casting a little bit later. And then late game, you could either duplicate backline carry as well, as I mentioned, or utility frontline. So like a backline carry that would benefit from this is like Caitlyn, Ezreal, Ahri. I've seen a lot of Caitlyn and played some Caitlyn. And then for like our frontline, I'd recommend Thresh. If you have Guardian in, these duplicated units benefit from active traits. So then your Guardian or your duplicated Thresh will get the Guardian Shield, and hopefully will cast, and then 2 Thresh casts. You can cover both sides of the board, and you're good to go. As I mentioned, like they benefit from active traits, so like a big shot if you have 2 Ezreals, or like a rapid fire if you have 2 Caitlyns, they will have these traits as well. So super good. 10 attack speed, 10 armor, and 15 crit. Okay. Our next item is Manazane. So keep in mind that the first item that I talked about, Zhonya's, is the best performing. And as we go down the list, that means these items are statistically getting like quote unquote worse. That doesn't mean these items are bad. It's just their placement relative to one another. So we're almost like near the middle of the pack now of like average performing artifacts, with Zhonya's of course being the best. And then we'll talk about the very last one, Deathfire Grasp. So next one is Manazane. You're getting a ton of stats for this. 15% attack damage, 10 AP, 15 attack speed, 15 mana. So this benefits both physical damage users and magic damage users. Gives you some starting mana and some attack speed. Basically, after the user has casted once, you will now gain 120 mana over 5 seconds. Now, this does not apply to the actual mana lock. So what I mean by that is if your unit casts and is like mana locked for a bit, or like animation locked, then they will start to gain their mana after the lock is over. So it's not like you'll cast if you are like locked for like a second. You're not going to lose that like maybe like 20 mana or like 30, like 25 mana. You're going to gain that mana after the lock is over. So don't worry about that. These are best on units that want to be casting as often as possible. So we have our first 1-cost units that really benefits from this. Lulu is very good, or not Lulu, well technically yes Lulu, but Annie uses Manazane very well. It helps her get to that 4th cast very quick, and then she'll be able to proc her innate passive from there. Ezreal is also very good, gets your 3rd cast very quick. Ahri, Qiyana, Jhin, Ziggs. Ahri and Ezreal are a bit of an interesting case because they're going to be able to burst really hard at the start of the fight, and they're extremely front-loaded as opposed to back-loaded. Front-loaded is you deal all of your damage like right at the start. However, there's not really any scaling, while back-loaded is like you ramp up to do your damage. Because after this Manazane, after the 120 manas is over, after it's gone, you're going to be much weaker than you would be than if you just had a regular like blue buff or something like that. So keep that in mind. But Qiyana uses extremely well, will print so many of the enemy items within like 4 casts because of the extra mana. Like Jhin, you're going to get like 7 turrets after your first cast, and then Ziggs is just going to stack really fast. So super good item. It's good early, however, it's even better late, and it's just a good item overall. Okay, so the next one we're going to talk about is Infinity Force. This is one of the most popular artifacts because of the Freaky Friday Prismatic, so it's really important to know how to use this. We're we're getting almost all the stats here. We're even getting magic resist. It just doesn't show in the graphics. So attack damage, ability power, attack speed, health, armor, magic resist, and mana. So you're getting many bonus stats, which makes this actually a really good early game item. So who are we going to put this on? Ideally, we want to put it on carry melee units. The reason why is because we have the health, we have the armor, we have the magic resist. Something like a backline unit. For most of the case, if your backline unit is getting hit, then most of the time they're dead. So having that extra like armor, extra magic resist, yes, it's good. However, you're able to utilize it better on a melee unit, which will be just getting hit like throughout the fight rather than your squishy backliner after your team is dead. So what does this mean? Who are we going to put this on? Both Akalis use this extremely well. I think true damage Akali uses it a little bit better than KD Akali, but both are still good. Your Zed, Viego, all your 5 costs. You might be wondering why I didn't include like Yone or Riven. It's not that good on these units. I think it's okay. Death's Defiance is definitely a lot better, especially for Yone. But if you have no other alternative, then I guess you could do some like Bloodthirster, Titan's Infinity Force combo or something like that. Now, Freaky Friday Prismatic is super good because it will give you 2 Infinity Forces, and it's super good early because, as I mentioned, you're going to get so many stats. So something like Edgelords, Crowd Divers, it's not bad on them. Like I think, of course, there are like better best in slots. However, like Infinity Force, it's a melee carry unit that utilizes all the stats, so it's still acceptable. And then in comps like this, you have so many different carries, so whatever you 2-star first along with your 3-star, whether it's like your Riven or your Yone, you're able to have a suitable secondary carry and you're good to go. So super good item, definitely really good early game, but not that good later into the game. Okay, Sniper's Focus is our next one. This item has started to become more popular because of the recent AD carry changes. So namely to Caitlyn and Ezreal. So this is a damage item that is best on ranged carries. So because it gives you that 1 extra range, and you might be thinking like, oh, like old times, rapid fire cannon, like put this on our melee units, it'll keep them safe. And honestly, that's fine early game. Like for stage 2, if you want to carry like a Sniper's Yasuo, then that's perfectly fine. Like give him an Infinity Edge as well, and we'll do a lot of damage. However, later into the game, especially on stage 3, stage 4, you want to be putting this on a ranged carry. Ideally on a ranged carry whose ability will hit units outside of their original range. So if you think like a Caitlyn bullet or like an Ezreal ult, it will travel across the entire I guess map, or I guess board, and you will get increased 9% damage for each hex traveled between the holder and the target. So this is why it's extremely good on units like Caitlyn and Ezreal. It will also give you some attack damage, some attack speed, and then some AP as well. So this is what I'm talking about. You want on units like Ezreal, you want to like have you have your position on the opposite side of the enemy carry, because you want to maximize the hex distance as much as possible because of that 9% for each hex, right? So make sure you have as many hexes as possible between yourself or like the holder and your main target. So most of the time this is going to be your enemy carry, and position opposite side, and you will most likely one-shot them if paired with like an Infinity Edge and then some sort of like mana generation or attack speed item. So this is your ideal Ezreal build. You'll have blue buff for casting, also a little bit extra damage, your Infinity Edge for crits, and then your Sniper's Focus, and you will do plenty of damage. Okay, so we're about on the halfway point now, maybe a little bit past. We're now going on to the Goldmancer staff. So this is a little bit of a, I don't want to say risky, however, there's specific cases where you will be taking Goldmancer staff. And this is if you have a good opener / a good holder. So Goldmancer staff, it's kind of like the AP version of Gambler's Blade. It will give you 30 AP right off the bat and 15 starting mana. Actually, I'm not even sure if the mana is accurate. I got this on the UpToDate website. However, I thought they had removed the mana, so I'm not 100% sure on the mana, but it definitely gives you 30 base AP plus 1 AP for every gold you have in your bank up to 30. So that means up to 30 AP if you have 30 gold or more in your bank. And then on kill, there's a 40% chance to drop 2 gold. So this is just like a better collector AP magic damage version. So of course you want to be putting this on AP carry. Senna uses this one of the best. Lux is really good, Ari is good, TF is good, and Ziggs is good. Basically just any AP carry that is able to output a lot of damage uses AP, of course. and ideally hits more than one target at a time. Ahri is fine because her single target is so insane that she will be like two or three shotting every unit that she's hitting. So she will be able to make quicker work of that, and then using that extra gold, you're able to push levels. So because of the stats, if you really like look at it, like 30 AP up to like 30 more, so like 60 AP, it's basically a budget Rabadon's. It's just pure AP. There's no like bonus stats. However, the econ value is what makes this really good. And as mentioned, once you've rolled a stabilize on whatever stage you are, you have a suitable holder. So like RE2 or like you're going for your Lux 3 TF2, you're able to start pushing levels with all that extra gold, and you'll be good to go. Okay. Anima Visage. So now we're going on to some tank items. This is a pretty basic item. It'll give you flat 450 HP, and you'll be healing 2.5 max health every second. So as you may have guessed, we're going to be putting this on tank units that have sustain. And so this is like early game. Cassante, Garen is really good. Their chosen versions. Echo is really good mid game. You can even keep them on your late game if you're playing like a KDA board. And then just any tank like Thresh, Saki, Alawi. This is a pretty generic tank item. It's really good early game. It's good late game as well. And you can consider taking this early game if you have another tank item to pair it with. So if you already have like a Steadfast Heart, or you can make it, or like a Crown Guard, or even, I mean, I guess Warmogs is okay with this. Like you'll be healing more max health. However, because it already gives you so much HP, you want to have a different stat other than HP, so like some resistances. So like a Gargoyles is fine as well. So super good early. If you're putting like an Anima Visage and like a Gargoyles on your Cassante 2 on stage 2, you're most likely going to 5 streak. And then this is just like a good tank item mid to late game as well. So pretty simple. Next one is Eternal Winter. So a little bit less simple. So the actual item itself does not give you a lot of tank. What I mean by that is Anima Visage, it gives you regeneration, right? But Eternal Winter, it only gives you 20 armor and 200 HP. The effect does not like technically make the holder tankier. It'll just be like reducing the damage output. So what I mean by this is you want to be putting Eternal Winter on tank units that have some sort of self-sustain. So either they're shielding themselves, healing themselves, have some sort of damage reduction, because you want your holder of Eternal Winter to be staying alive as long as possible, and you need something that will be able to tank, because most of the time you're going to be frontline. Well, you will always be frontlining, but what I mean is solo frontlining your Eternal Winter, so then the entire enemy board is hitting this Eternal Winter and getting chilled and then getting stunned. So early game, Cassante, Garen, Echo, Bliss, basically the same thing as Anima Visage. However, you want to make sure that whatever tank you put it on, not only are they have some sort of like shielding or self-sustain for themselves built into their kit, you also want to have some sort of like support system. So like it's really good in like the Disco comp. Not only does Disco heal the Blitzcrank, but you can have a Gunblade and heal with your Twisted Fate as well. So you might be thinking, oh, I have to solo frontline the Eternal Winter like the entire game. Definitely do on stage 2, just because there's not enough burst to like insta burst your Eternal Winter, and you'll be able to make a lot of good use from the chilling effect and the stun. However, late game there's a lot of like multi-targeting or like AoE damage from the enemies, and that activates the chill and stun as well. So you can still frontline it, especially like based off your items. If you have like a Crown Guard, then of course you want to make use of that shield, but don't worry too much if like you can't, or you run out of space, or it messes up your positioning. Most of the time late game many units will proc the Eternal Winter from the enemy as well. Okay, so next one is Blacksmith's Gloves. This is not technically, okay, it is an Ornn item, but it does not come from the Ornn Portable Forge, and it does not come from the Ornn Ornn Artifact Anvil region. So the only way to get this is either from Heartsteel cash outs, or the Capricious Forge gold augments, which I recommend to take on 3-2 if you need the items, and not too much on 4-2 because it's just not as good. As you may have guessed, it's going to be better on frontline units, because so far we've talked about a lot more frontline items versus backline items, which means that just by putting it on frontline units like these gloves, they're going to be able to utilize the variety of tank, and you can put it on like bruises as well. I'll talk about it in the next line, so that can utilize the damage items. So like bruisers that have some sort of like sustain and do damage, namely true damage Akali, like she does extremely well with Blacksmith's gloves. The regular, or not regular, the KDA Akali is okay as well. But like a Viego, Zed, any 5 cost melee units, they'll make amazing work of the Blacksmith gloves. Depending on what they roll, they're almost going to be able to make use of every item. And it's super good. It'll give you 2 random Ornn Artifacts. If you get 2 damage ones, then make sure that your unit doesn't get hit right away. If you have like tank ones, like an Eternal Winter plus an Anima Visage, or Eternal Winter plus like a Hullcrusher, make sure they are getting hit first. And super versatile is basically just Ornn Artifact these gloves. So yeah, pretty good. The reason why it's better on 3-2 is because then you're up like a 2 whole Ornn Artifacts. And that's really good on tempo on stage 3 when not too many people have like too many resources. However, on 4-2, it doesn't make that big of a deal. A lot of people have like, or there's a lot more items that everybody has. So getting 2 extra items is not that impactful. Okay, we are getting near the bottom of the list now. I see a couple questions here. Sorry about that. So I see the first one. Does gold I'll go back. Does gold collector proc after damage? Does gold collector proc after damage or when they hit? Well, the gold collector the execute will happen once they're below the threshold. So once it goes below 12% max health, like after the damage goes through, as they get hit, then gold collector will proc.
So yeah, sorry to clarify that. Like if they're at 14% health and I hit them and I knock them below 12, do they execute, or do they have to be at or below 12 when I attack them for it to execute?
Oh, your first point. So as long as you hit them below 12% max health, then it'll execute. It doesn't have to be at 12 health or 12% and then hit. So if you just hit them, like if the damage you would have done takes them below 12% max health, then it'll execute.
So like an Ari with her second hit, knocking people down pretty deep, it'll finish them off.
Yes. However, we won't be building gold collector on Ari. It would be like a Samira cast. But yes, you have the right point.
Okay.
I've seen Kiana with Sniper's Focus because it makes her very safe. I think it's fine. If you already have a 3-item carry, or you like late game get a Sniper's Focus from a Heartsteel cash out, then yeah, it's perfectly fine to put it on Kiana. Both are fine. It really depends on your spots. And then are Blacksmith gloves affected by Lucky Gloves? Yes, they are. You will get 2 ideal items. According to Riot Games, ideal items for your carry. Okay, we're getting near the end now. So Hullcrusher, 30 attack speed, and you also get 35 armor and magic resist. So, and then at the combat start, if there's no adjacent allies, you gain 600 health. So this is kind of like a budget Warmogs with some extra like offensive capabilities, so the attack speed, and you also get some resistances. So armor, magic resist, and health all mixed together is extremely good. This is really good on tank units early game, and then as you transition into the mid to late game, it's very good on attack damage melee / close range units, but it's also fine on tank units if you need that extra item. So like Cassante or Echo early game, and then late game you could go like true damage Akali, Zed, Viego, Yorick. It basically substitutes for both. So as I mentioned, it's like a makeshift / budget Warmogs early game, and then 80 tank item late. Gambler's Blade. So although the item is very good, if you get like a lucky streak, so this is the gold augments, it's really performing well, especially on 2-1. If you do have the portable forge augments, most of the time you will have some sort of better option. So for example, I think like Goldmancer staff or in some cases Goldmancer staff and gold collector would be a lot better than Gambler's Blade, because it doesn't say here, but you have only a 4% chance per attack to gain 1 gold, which is a very low amount. However, the actual stats of the item are quite good, like 10 AP and 40 base attack speed, all the way up to 70% attack speed is really good. Because of all this attack speed, is really good on backline carry units. Early game, like a Corki or a Jinx Chosen will hold this extremely well, even a Kaisa Chosen on stage 3. And then late game, you want to transition to Twisted Fate, Ahri, Ezreal, especially Sona. Sona is the best user of attack speed late game, so make sure you pair this on her. early game is actually, I think you should pair it with red buff instead of Ginsu's, because the only user that will ideally use Ginsu's is Sona, and it's not guaranteed. So red buff is a lot better, gives you a lot of attack speed as well to pair with this attack speed, hopefully farm some gold, and you're able to have better applications and holder for this item. Okay, Mogul's mail. I see a question. Does Qiyana print Ornn items? No, she does not. Qiyana will only print regular ones. She will knock back enemy units that have Ornn items held. Mogul's mail, 200 health. This is an interesting one. It stacks up to 40 times, and per stack, as you take damage, so much like a Titan's Resolve, you'll gain armor, magic resist, and health. Once you reach 40 stacks, you will also gain 2 gold. So this is best on frontline tanks. We've talked about this. Like almost all of the tank holders of these Ornn artifact items are the same. So like early game, like Kasante Garrett, Echo mid game, and then like your Blitz, Thresh, Zakalari late game are all fine. This is not recommended. I don't think this is a good item right now in today's meta. There's a lot of full open and loose streakers, so you most likely will not be proccing this item 40 times and not getting your 2 gold. But if you are to play this, then make sure you solo frontline your unit that is holding this and pair with other tank items to make sure it survives long enough to hit the 40 stacks. Okay, and our very last item, Deathfire Grasp. Very sad, we do not see much of this item. It's just not a great item in this set. It gives you 45 base AP and 15 starting mana. At the start of combat, you will blast the current target, so the target in front of you or closest to you, for 20% of their max health, and then you deal extra % damage for the next 10 seconds. So if you were to play this, put it on an AP carry. It's actually good on True Damage Akali because she has AP scaling, and you're just going to be like output damage. It's fine. Ari is also good. Ziggs is good, but just because these are good holders of the item doesn't mean the item's good. And last but not least, position in front of the enemy tank to deal that initial 20% max health is actually pretty good there, but there's just better Ornn items, and it's just it's not that good on this patch at least. Maybe it'll be better if like Karthus gets giga buffed or Ari gets, I mean Ari is still good. It's just not that good of an item currently. So that's actually it. I'll go back to the main list so you see a kind of a rundown of everything. Basically, there's 3 ways to get us, either from Portable Forge, the artifact region, or from Heartsteel Cash Out at 130 hearts plus. Zhonya's is the best performing artifact right now, with Deathfire Grasp being the worst performing. I would say like anything around like here is really good, or at least acceptable, and then anything from here is not that good. But yeah, these are a ton of fun items to play around. This is it for the lesson, so I'm gonna stop it here. Thank you for watching.